Morning, everyone. My name is Justin. I'm the pastor here. Welcome. Um, just want to let you know that Benton Church is a place that I love, and my guess is many of you do as well. We view this as kind of a come as you are place where we want you to come and be relaxed as we have this opportunity to worship and learn together. There's snacks over at the table over there that you can just go and pick up during the first portion of the service. We're about to greet one another, and so if you want to shake a couple hands on your way over there, that would be totally understandable. We get that. A couple other things to make you aware of is there is a nursery that's available for kids 3 and under. If you see that you need that or would like that during the service, just head out the doors and to my right, and it'll be down there on the end. And also, if you are newer here and you haven't filled out what we call a connection card, where it's just basically we can get some basic contact information from you so we can keep in touch with you, please do so back at the table there, the yellow table in the back of the room. And then if there's anything where there's additional information or things to sign up for, we encourage you to head back to the Happenings booth back there in order to make those things happen. We hope that each of you grabbed a bulletin on your way in. If not, please grab one on your way out or sneak and get one right now. That's fine with me. This is our best way of communicating with people. And there's a couple things that I want to make you aware of. First of all, next week there is a combined service for Memorial Weekend. So we will have one service next week at 10 o'clock. And so make sure that that's on your calendar. And a few things that aren't necessarily in the calendar that I want to make you aware of. First of all, today is Graduate Sunday. And so during the 10 o'clock time, we will have graduates from 8th grade, 12th grade, and college that will be here, and we just want to give people the opportunity to congratulate them, and we'll eat some snacks together. And then at 11 o'clock, even though you're at the 9 o'clock service, at the beginning of the service, we will honor the high school graduates. And so if you want to hang around just for an extra few minutes during that time, so you can see that and sneak on out, we would be totally okay with that. A couple of other things is that there's a new college age group that is starting in June, and we want to make you aware of it because it'll start being in the bulletin. It's called Consumed, and what the idea is we want to start connecting with and blessing the young adults and the college age students in our community, or that's connected to the church. And so you'll see that June 9th is going to be their first gathering, and so they're going to be eating some Italian food and just starting to connect with one another. And so if you know somebody who is of that age group that you would want to make them aware of it, you'll start seeing that in the bulletin, and so be looking for that. And then also, as you came in, if you saw in the back that there's a bunch of baby bottles back there, we try to connect with some of the things that are going on in our community. And the Pregnancy Center of El Dorado is looking for change in order to help the ministry that they do. And so the bottles will be back there, and what the idea is that every family, if they can pick up a bottle, and then you just fill it up with change and then return it by Father's Day, we will make sure that all that financial support will go towards that ministry. So just be checking those things out. And so then at this time, I would love for all of us to just stand up and greet one another and let people know that you're glad they're here.
could sing of your love forever. I could sing of your love forever. I could sing of your love forever. I could sing of your love forever. Over the mountains and the sea, your river runs with love for me. And I will open up my heart and let the healer set me free. I'm happy to be in the truth, and I will daily lift my hands, for I will always sing of when your love came down. I could sing of your love forever. 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 Oh, I feel like dancing. It's foolishness, I know, but when the world has seen the light, they will dance with joy like we're dancing now. I could sing of your love forever. 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 Blessed assurance, Jesus is mine. Oh, what a foretaste of glory divine, heir of salvation, purchase of God, born of His Spirit, washed in His blood. This is my story, this is my song, praising my Savior all the day long. This is my story, this is my song, praising my Savior all the day long. Perfect submission, perfect delight, visions of rapture aroused on my sight. Angels descending bring from above echoes of mercy, whispers of love. This is my story, this is my song, praising my Savior all the day long. This is my story, this is my song, praising my Savior all the day long. Perfect submission, all is at rest. I and my Savior am happy and blessed, watching and waiting, looking above, filled with His goodness, lost in His love. This is my story, this is my song, praising
come in our service to a time where we drop the bottle. Come in our service to our time of prayer. Each and every week during this service, we pause and we want to hear from you all if there are things that you want to thank God for or requests that you want people to be praying for. And so in just a moment, if you have something, just simply raise your hand and a microphone will come to you. Just share what your name is and what your request is, and we will make sure to be praying for it throughout the week here at the church and hopefully other people as well. You'll notice that I brought this up front. As many of you know, Fred Hopkins has been in the hospital for a little while. He's had some heart surgery and he's in the midst of recovering. And one of the things that the church wanted to do, and Rita specifically said, let's bless Fred, because he hasn't been able to have a whole lot of visitors up to this point. And so she made what she calls an adult bib that's has John Deere, if you know Freddie loves John Deere equipment. What? I was going to say that. But when Fred's done needing the bib, he can turn it around, right? Put it on his back, and he will be the John Deere superhero that we all know him to be. And so this is just up front as a reminder. We're going to be just praying for Fred here in a moment, and this will just be just a part of that for us. But is there anything else that anybody would want to share or request that you have?
Earlier this week, my son texted me and said, "Dad, you want to go to dinner Friday?" Oh, great, awesome. He's going to be in town. So him and Seth and Emma, they show up, and Emma's carrying this package. Well, he's in the Navy, and he says he's going to get me a USS Wichita coin off one of the ships. Well, it turned out to be a picture frame. And they're 11 weeks along, and we're going to be grandparents in December.
Well, congratulations.
My name's Mary Evans, and I am in the process of recovering from a fairly serious illness that was not fun, but I am recuperating. It could have been much worse, and I thank you all for your thoughts and prayers and cards. And now I am the poster child for get your shingles vaccination, because that's what this began as and then changed into this neurological complication. So go get it.
Thank you, Mary, and I'm glad you're doing better.
I'm Martha, and I just wanted to encourage you guys you've got the insert in your bulletin with just gives an outline of what's going to go on here in another week and a half for our annual conference in Topeka. And Justin and I will be there, but I would invite you guys all to keep us in prayer as we approach that time, and also throughout that conference. Just keep it all covered that God is honored.
Absolutely.
And P.S. I do have a copy, my copy of our workbook, the full workbook that I made that summary from that you have. So if you want more details or you want to look in it and see what the actual text said or maybe clarify questions for yourself, I will keep that workbook at Happenings on the Low level around the corner all week this week. I've read everything in it that I need. I have other reading I need to do, but that's for you guys to use this week.
Which then, of course, brings up a question in many people's minds. How are we doing in regards to our relationship with the United Methodist Church? And we apologize that the process has been slow, but after the last General Conference and the Judicial Council approving things at the General Conference, we do believe that there's a plan in place that may help us to be able to separate graciously, and there's some key pieces that are being presented at this upcoming annual conference that may help in doing that. And so just as we say be in prayer for the annual conference, just continue to be in prayer with our relationship with all of that too, so that we can finish well. Okay? Anything else? Well, I'm going to open us in prayer then, and after a few moments, there'll be this time of silence where you will be praying for the things that are on your heart or things that have been shared. There's always some names in the bulletin that we encourage you to be thinking about throughout the week as well. And then I'll be praying for an offering that we will be taking here for those who believe in the ministry that's going on. So God, thank you. Thank you so much for the blessing of the lives that you've given us. And the reality that in good and bad, you are always there. We can trust you. God, thank you for this church. Thank you for how this is the church that just continues to love you and honor you and bring you glory through our word, but also through our actions. And that when people share requests, I am convinced, I am confident that people are praying. And so we thank you for that. God, even as my hand is on this adult bib that we know someday will be a cape soon enough, pray for that you would bless Fred. Continue to help him to heal and recover. God, that the infection goes away. That he will be able to come back and be the Fred that we remember, God, if not better. We trust you. We trust you, God. We celebrate with Mike and Kelly that Mike is going to be a granddad here soon. Just pray that you would help them to have a safe pregnancy, and that all will go well. We thank you for the witness of Mary standing up to say that she believes that by your grace and through the prayers of people, she is doing better. But also the reminder that she gives us that we are to take care of ourselves. This body is a gift from you. May we not ignore the signs that you give us. When we think about annual conference that's coming up, God, our heart is, as you well know, has been to be an autonomous church, faithfully serving you in the Benton area. So we pray for a blessing on the United Methodist Church. Help them with all that they are thinking through and going through, God. Help the pieces that may be helpful to us as we work towards our leaving, God. That those things would be able to work themselves out. And I pray for the leaders of this church as we just continue to figure out how to best move us towards what we believe you're calling us to do. And there's many other things, God. So we pause, and in silence, we each share the things that we know that are important to us, or the things that we have heard. So, Lord, hear our prayers. Oh God, thank you. Now, as those of us who do believe in what you're doing here, and as we continue to share our tithes and our gifts, God, help us to trust you with what's been given. Help the leadership here to use that money with great wisdom and discernment. And help us to just continue to trust you with our lives beyond this place as well. To you be the glory for everything, God, in Jesus' name. Amen. Please be seated. And I'd love for you to, just for a few moments to direct your attention to the screen. Bill Fernandez in the early 70s had these two friends who were both named Steve. And one day he was out walking just around the neighborhood with one of his friends, Steve, when he sees the other Steve in his driveway, and he's washing his car, and he's thinking, well, this is my chance to introduce these two good friends of mine to each other. And so, walks up to the other Steve, and it's like, Steve, 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 as well, one of those times goes. And this is how Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak first met. And they hit it off, right? And they find out that they both just love technology stuff, and then just a few years later, they start this little tiny company called Apple, right? And who would have thought that a chance meeting of these two guys would end up becoming one of the world's most valued businesses in our world? Who would have thought of that? As Christians, when we hear even just a little statement like that, what I'm hoping is that something would have caught our attention, and even what I was just sharing there. A chance meeting? Is there such a thing as a chance meeting? Or is it possible, at least as Christians, what we think is that these intersections that we have in our lives day in and day out could possibly be more than just a chance meeting? What would it look like if we saw these intersections in our lives as opportunities for God to do something in the lives of ourselves or the people around us? We've been going through the beginning of the book of Acts. The idea is what happened in the early church, so that maybe we can take some of these principles and apply them to our lives, apply them to our church, so that we can be like the early church in the things that they did. And so we've been talking about this unstoppable gospel, right? And the first thing that we looked at in the beginning of Acts chapter 1 is that Jesus said that you have this mission. It's an unstoppable mission, and what that mission is that you are my witness. That your life shows and your words tell about me. That's our job. That's our mission. And then we moved on to clearly talk about what the message is that we share. And that's that Jesus Christ can change people's lives. Jesus Christ is the only hope that we have. A couple weeks ago, we started talking about that the early church had this unstoppable love where they figured out ways to just care for each other and help one another out and gather together so that they can learn together and experience the love that God has in their lives and share that with one another. Well, now we move on to the next chapter. And 3,000 were added to the church in an instant, right? And they're trying to figure out how this all happens. What do we do? And now we get into the next chapter where we see Peter and John specifically continuing on with their life. And they have this chance meeting that they don't view as a chance meeting. Lord, would you help us as we look into your word to begin to see the things that you want us to see? That we don't hear for the sake of hearing, but for understanding. And that our hearts are willing to be moved and changed by you. I don't have this all figured out, Lord. I need your help. And my guess is all of us, if we were honest, we would say we're in the same boat. And so open our eyes, God, to what it means to to see life with unstoppable opportunity. And may the words that I share and the things that we all hear be acceptable and pleasing to you. God, you are our rock and our blessed Redeemer. Amen. And so we begin, Peter just gave the message. 3,000 are added. They're figuring out how they all live together. And then now we move on to kind of how their day-to-day routine happens. And so we start off by seeing that they see the opportunities they have as not just intersections, but as something way more. And so as we start chapter 3, what you see is one day it says Peter and John, they're going up to the temple at the time of prayer, about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Okay? Now, so this is what they typically did in this time. And so what we are hearing is that Peter and John are doing the things that Peter and John have always done in their life. All right? In this culture, each and every afternoon, if you were able to, you headed to the temple, you headed to church for a time of prayer. And so they would be doing this, almost every day. And so this was just a regular piece of who they were. And so now imagine that all of us, that we attended church practically every day, right? And so a part of our time is we make sure to get done with work in time to hurry and get to the church, okay? And so this is the picture of what's going on, okay? And so they're doing this, and it says now there was a man who was lame from birth, was being carried to the temple gate called Beautiful, where he was put every day to beg from those going into the temple courts. And now we start to feel a bit of discomfort, or at least I do when I read something like this, because I know how uncomfortable I am with people who beg. That it's something that I feel awkward, and I don't want to make eye contact, and I don't want to eat, I don't want to look at them, and if I could just move right by without dealing with it, because I have opinions about people who beg. And I think some of them are probably true, and my guess is some of them probably aren't true, right? But this is the picture. So now imagine Peter and John, they're just heading to the temple because this is what they did everywhere. It's kind of like going to their job, right? And so they're just heading there, and all these other people are heading there as well. And there's this crazy busyness that we all just get caught up into, right? And so for some of you, imagine you're trying to figure out how you're going to get your kids there and get on time to church, which some of us, we have a hard time getting here on time for church. It probably happened back then as well. Oh, can you believe it? Bartholomew jumped in a mud puddle, and now we got to change his robe before we head to church. Those things were probably happening. So everyone's now just trying to hurry into the temple so they're not too late for the time of prayer. And Peter and John are walking there as well. And there's this lame person who's there. In chapter 4, verse 22, it says that this guy has been lame for 40 years. He hasn't been able to walk. And so now he is begging, and he has done this each and every day. He's not allowed inside the temple, and so now he's outside the temple. This was the custom. The rabbis of the time, they actually encouraged this to happen. That when people were begging or people were asking for alms or help, that we would be the people who would help. There was no government assistance at this time. So the church was the people that were to help. And so the expectation, here's what was being taught to everyone at the time by the rabbis, is that we are people who are going to choose to be generous. And that the number one thing that they encourage people to do when you see somebody begging, see somebody who needs help, is to offer a good deed. That's the first thing. Is that we figure out a way where we can be helpful to that person in the situation that they are in. And if you are unable to offer a good deed, then give them some financial resources so that they are able to continue on with their life. And I assume what happened then is the same thing that happens now, is we have just moved to the point, like you saw in the video, right, where we would just be walking by and just throwing some coins at somebody so that we can continue to move on with our life. And this is what I do most of the time, when I actually give something. And so you get the picture. Everyone's hustling to get into church, right? The people who are begging, and there's probably coins being dropped by now and then, but they're at the temple court. He's been doing this for 40 years, right? But then it says when Peter and John were about to enter, because now the story is through the lens of Luke looking at these apostles, right? And so Peter and John are about to enter in, and it says the beggar asked them for money. This was the common thing. This is what happened, right? But then something very uncommon happens. And here's what I want us to begin to see. First, there's two pieces in this. And the first thing is that individuals matter to Peter and John. I mean, you have to remember, 3,000 people just joined their church, right? And yet there's this one person who is begging, and they stop. They've got so much they have to figure out and deal with, but they see one person who needs help, and they stop. And it says Peter looked straight at him. Peter looked straight at him. Because what they believed is intersections provide opportunity. And so Peter says to them, look at us. Look at us. Well, what does look at us mean? Here's what it means. I see you. I know people have been wandering by you. Nobody's been looking you in the eye, right? But I am stopping and I am looking at you. You are not invisible. Even though this world just keeps moving by, you are not invisible. You matter. And I, or we, want to help. They could have just walked on and just assumed that it was just a chance meeting, that we ran by this person. No, they realized that individuals matter, and maybe, just maybe, God could do something extraordinary when I move past just greeting and saying hi to people to looking somebody in the eyes and seeing them with the love of Christ and realizing that they matter. And so Peter says, look at us, right? And what the idea is he's now seeing that this is an opportunity where I can share Christ's love with this person whose attention and I now have. I've realized that I need to give my attention, right? And now I'm asking somebody else to give their attention. And now we're at this point where we're both looking at each other, and what are we going to do? There's this old Quaker proverb that I'd love to just share with you really quick. And here's what it says. It says, I expect to pass through this world but once. Any good, therefore, that I can do, or any kindness that I can show to any fellow creature, let me do it now. Let me not defer or neglect it, for I shall not pass this way again. I think this is what Peter and John were doing, is they realized that the person in front of them, whether they had planned it or not, is an opportunity for God to be blessed or blessing. God to bless them or to bless the other person. And so Peter and John say, look at us. Let me have your attention. So the man gives them their attention, is what it says, right? And he's expecting to get some money from them, right? Or he's expecting some sort of good deed from them. But then Peter says this thing, which had to disappoint the guy, right? He says, silver and gold I don't have. Whoa, oh, so you're stopping me, you're trying to get my attention, and then you're going to tell me you can't help me? I mean, how irritating would that be? But what I love about this is Peter's not giving any excuses. Hey, think about what's going on with Peter. Peter hadn't had a job for 3 years. What could he give the person? Right? You know, Peter could have been thinking, why don't you go get a job? Right? Somebody else, somebody who has more money should be able to help you. I can't. I can barely figure out how I'm going to manage the stuff that I'm doing each and every day. But that's not what Peter does. He just tells them the truth. I don't have anything physical that I can give you. I don't have it. But, and he starts to share something really powerful, right? But what I do have, I'm going to give to you freely. And you want to know what I have? I have Christ in me. And that's what I give. It says, in the name of Jesus Christ of Nazareth, walk. And many of us have heard the story. We know what happens next, right? Peter, who says, I've got nothing, but I know that Jesus can do something in your life. And so now I invite you to understand and have Jesus in your life. And then Peter, he doesn't just stop by talking to him. It says he takes him by the right hand, with his right hand, right? And he helps him up. I'm not just going to tell you something. I am going to help you to take the step. to knowing who this Jesus is and what he can do for your life, because Jesus is the only one that can heal you. Peter and John can't heal, right? No, Jesus is the one who can heal. And it says as he reached out and he grabbed with his right hand, right? It says instantly, it says the man's feet and ankles became strong, and he jumps up and he begins to walk. And again, there's a couple of key things that I notice here. First of all, Peter and John, they gave from what they had, right? They didn't have a whole lot. But they trusted God with the resources that they have. Each and every day, when I come in contact with you, okay, I have everything that I need to be in contact with you. That's the way God has set it up. And now Peter and John are doing the same thing. I've got nothing, but I can come and I can share something with you. And that is that I rely on Jesus for my life. And you can rely on Jesus too. I've got nothing else except for Jesus, and he can change your life. So get up and walk. Immediately the man jumps to his feet, and he begins to walk. And then it says that he went with them into the temple courts. This guy he likely hadn't been in the temple for 40 years. He had been on the outside of all of this God-related stuff in his life, and now he gets to experience the inside. And why does that happen? Is it a chance meeting? No. It's because in the intersection that Peter and John was in, they made the most of the opportunity. And they blessed somebody by letting them know about Jesus. And now he's on the inside and he's praising God, right? Walking and jumping and praising God. Intersections provide these opportunities for us to share Christ's love. And then, not only that, but it also then leads to, or brings more opportunities. And so they all start heading into the temple. And they're super excited because God has done something extraordinary in this man's life. And he's praising God. He's not just exercising his legs that haven't been used for 40 years, right? He's praising God. And it's like he can't shut up. And verse 10 it says, and everyone starts recognizing him, right? They've seen the guy for 40 years sitting there, right? They recognized the same man who sat begging at the temple, and they were filled with wonder and amazement. Their response was, what in the world just happened? Amazement is the Greek word I can't even say it, but it's the word that we get ecstasy from. I mean, it's that our mind has been shifted in the way that we think, because of how extraordinary it was that this person had met Jesus and Jesus changed their life. But then Peter seizes the opportunity, because just because we are amazed at the things that God can do or amazed at the things that God has done, it doesn't mean that we believe him. It doesn't mean that we know him. And so Peter takes the opportunity to stand up and start telling people that this really had nothing to do with who they were, but with Jesus. And Jesus can change people's lives. The one who was dead and buried and rose again is the one who healed this man, and he can do the same for you. Peter takes advantage of the opportunity, and a couple thousand more people start coming to Christ, because they took advantage of an opportunity. I read this story this last week that I thought was a really, really interesting story. And the story goes about this church, and the church has a food pantry, right? And in the food pantry, sometimes people who need the food in a food pantry actually physically can't come to the church in order to gain access to the food pantry. And so this church, they had figured out that if they found out that people needed food, they had some people that would then bag up the groceries and they would bring them to the place where they needed the food. So that was a part of the ministry of the food pantry that they had. And so there were these two guys that were this day, they were to bring food to people, and there was this one lady who said, a young lady said, I would like you to bring some food to my aunt. So they gave the address, they packed up the food, and they started heading to the address. And as they get to the place where the address was, they ended up outside a fortune teller store. Okay? And they're a little confused by this, right? And so they actually call the church up and say, is this really the place that we're supposed to drop off the food? And they find out, yes, this is the place that they were supposed to drop it off. And as the story was shared, these guys were irritated. They were irritated that they had to now bring this food into this place where somebody who believes that can speak to the dead, and something that God has said is absolutely an abomination. This is something that is wrong in the world. Now they have to walk in with some groceries and offer it to that person. But they decide they're going to do it. So they take the groceries and they walk in. And they start to share, hey, we're from so-and-so church, right, and the food shelf, and your niece, who was there, has asked that we bring some groceries to you. And I want you to hear what the fortune teller lady said. The woman was amazed, it says, and it says, you guys really do help people, regardless of a person's faith, don't you? One of the guys, out of the blue, whether he was seizing an opportunity or not, he said, yes, but life is hopeless without Jesus. They continued to talk for a little bit, just small talk, right? And then they set down the groceries, and they're about to leave, and they asked the niece of this fortune teller, right, will you want to just pray really quick? Because what they do is they would then pray for the food that they're sharing, that it would bless the people, right? That they would experience the love of Christ in it. And so now the niece and these two gentlemen, they're praying over this food. While this is happening, there's a group of people in the room that were waiting for a seance to take place. And so they're all watching as these three are now praying over this food. And then all of a sudden, one of the people that was waiting there said, would you be willing to pray for this? And so then they go over and they start praying for that person's request. And then another one, and another one, and another one. And they all just started asking these people to be praying for something. And finally, after all this prayer, one of the guys said, do any of you want to become a Christian? That was the question. Any of you want to become a Christian? 8 people gave their lives to Christ that day. And the pastor the next Sunday, he said in his sermon, he said this, he said, 2 bags of groceries built a bridge into lives and hearts of those who needed Christ. My question is would we be people who are willing to turn our intersections into opportunities by looking people in the eye and knowing that Jesus loves them? Begin to share that somehow, some way. I have and you have everything that you need when you meet somebody. The question is are we going to now see this as an opportunity?
What did you do to my sign?
I wrote the same, but in different words.
Thanks, love.
God, help us to make the most of all the opportunities that we find ourselves in. Help us to begin to have eye contact with the world and especially the people around us with the intent of sharing Christ's love, which may bring other opportunities. I think for some of us, myself included, this might be a challenge. But as best I can and as best I know how, God, I choose to do what you are asking me to do. Maybe that be all of our prayers. In Jesus' name, amen.
I invite you to stand as we close this morning with Take My Life and Let It Be. If you have your hymnal this morning, it's going to be number 379, and we'll sing verses 1, 2, 4, and 5.
Take my feet and let them be swift and beautiful for thee, swift and beautiful for thee. Take my silver and my gold, not a mite would I withhold. Take my intellect and use every power thou shalt choose, every power thou shalt choose. Take my will and make it thine, it shall be no longer mine. Take my heart, it is thine own, it shall be thy royal throne, it shall be thy royal throne.
Thank you so much for being a part of worship. I remind you that graduates, 8th grade, 12th grade, and some college will be coming in a little bit. Even if you haven't given a card, still just bless these people with a little bit of time. That would be greatly appreciated. And I remind you at the beginning of the next service, we will have a graduate thing as well. And there's a table back there for Fred if you wanted to fill something out for him too. But may I bless us now as we move on? May we be people that take the most of every intersection that we find ourselves in. May I, along with all of us, begin to look people in the eyes and see this as an opportunity that Jesus has given me to share his love. And may the world begin to see and experience Jesus through us. Go in peace.